Right then, welcome back. It's 6:41. If you've just joined us, a reminder of the top stories this morning. And we start with a glimmer of hope. 24 hostages, including women and children, were released by Hamas yesterday. More are expected to be set free, hopefully, in the coming days.
The Met Police will issue leaflets to pro-Palestinian demonstrators, warning them what language could land them in jail, as security is ramped up across the capital today, with over 100,000 protesters expected to take to the streets.
And the chairman of Comic Relief, Eric Salama, has sensationally quit over the Gaza ceasefire call, plunging the charity into crisis.
Elsewhere, could another royal racism row be brewing? New bombshell book claims the Duchess of Sussex accused two members of the royal family of airing concerns over the colour of her son's skin.
Well, joining us to go through some of the day's headlines is showbiz reporter Stephanie Tetchy and philosopher Piers Ben. But shall we have a quick look through the papers first, through the front pages? And if we look at the Times, at last freedom for some, reads the front of the Times, as 24 hostages are released by Hamas in exchange for prisoners.
The Mirror also leads with the hostage release, reporting hope amid Gaza horror.
Similarly, The Guardian carries the headline, "War is paused while 24 hostages are freed," and features the image of a woman after being released by Hamas.
While on the front of The Telegraph, Comic Relief chairman quits after charity signs petition supporting Gaza ceasefire.
And The Sun reports that Meghan has accused two people of discussing concerns about her son Archie's skin colour, as the bombshell book Endgame is expected to reveal all. Yawn, yawn. I have to say that. I'm so fed up with them writing books that say nasty things. Or at least they haven't written it, but their friend has.
Well, it's tough as well, because it sounded like we were moving towards a rapprochement between Harry and his father.
Yes, and this will stop it, but, you know, can't beat an author wanting to make money from a book, can you, I suppose? Anyway, Piers and Stephanie are with us, and it's lovely to see you both. Piers, shall we start with you? Because it's the obvious big story everywhere on the front pages about the hostages being released yesterday.
Yes, it's everywhere on the front pages. The Times says at last freedom for some and reports 24 hostages being released by Hamas, 13 already released after 7 weeks. Obviously, it's good news. The real question, of course, is what the long game is on both sides. It's notable that Israel does care very much about its own hostages. You can imagine other states not being so concerned. And for a long time, during the 70s and 80s, when there were many hostage crises, the stance of governments often was never negotiate with kidnappers.
Yes, that's right.
Never at all. Yeah. Even if it does put the hostages in danger, because you set a precedent and it can escalate. Israel's not doing that, which is interesting. But I suppose the question is who now is in a stronger position. One can imagine Hamas wanting to hold on to at least some hostages for as long as they can, while buying peace, or buying a pause by releasing some. It's hard to know what will happen when they have just a few to release. What will be the negotiating position then? It's very hard to know.
And they'll be very reluctant, won't they, to release members of the military?
Yes.
I mean, they would be the last,
yes,
do you think, to be released?
Well, yeah, probably, although, of course, Israel, in exchange, is releasing, not only having a pause, but releasing some Palestinian prisoners, some of whom, of course, will be of military value to Hamas.
39 women,
yes,
children, teenagers released.
Yes, initially, but then if it comes to, military people, fighters in prison, well, who knows what will happen then? It all depends on how desperate Israel is to get its hostages back.
It's a deadly game that's being played now, isn't it? There's been a deadly war, and now in this peace, well, some people are calling it peace, but a pause, there is a deadly game going on, and it is involving people's lives.
Yeah. And that's the sad part, and I'm just hoping that both sides can actually see the benefits of a ceasefire and peace, because the amount of atrocities that has been happening in over just, almost 2 months is terrible, and it's quite saddening. And you just think for both sides now, they really have to think, actually, why after this pause for 4 days, why should they continue fighting?
Because Hamas believe they want to annihilate Israel.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, that's
is that
belief.
Really what they're thinking? Like
Hamas is, yes.
I think
they're dedicated.
Yes.
Israel believes they can destroy Hamas, but whether they can destroy the ideology of Hamas is another matter.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is an ideology, and I think we still have innocent people in Gaza who are dying. So I think for Hamas to also need to think about all the destruction they're causing within their own city.
What was wonderful last night, as you watched the images of the hostages being freed, was knowing that they're going to be reunited with their families, but also so hard because they looked... they looked haunted, didn't they? And some of them didn't know that members of their family, I think one of the women released, she didn't know that her son had been massacred by Hamas on October the 7th. There's so much they still don't know about what happened.
No, they don't know. Well, they don't know anything. They've been kept in the dark, almost literally.
And I can imagine 48 days has probably felt like a lifetime for them, just to have their lives
knowing what's going on.
taken, and now to rebuild from that trauma as well. I can't even imagine.
Well, let's lighten the mood a little by going down under and talking about Nigel Farage in the jungle. Steph, what's the latest?
Well, Nigel's coming across pretty well. I think people thought he was going to be quite more controversial. Obviously, we've had a couple of blows about Brexit so far on the show, but it's more Lorraine Kelly who's been ruffling a few feathers, because earlier this week on her show, she made some cutting remarks about Nigel Farage. He's had a lot of scenes where he's been in the bath and he's exposed his derriere, but she says that she called...
Well, we can see what she says because, Stephanie, we have the clip. Take a look and a listen.
What, 59? He's got plenty of years ahead of him. Maybe he wants to get going again.
Is he only 59? I thought he was a hell of a lot older than that. That's astonishing. Just shows you get the face you deserve, frankly.
You get the face you deserve.
But if a man said that about a woman, there'd be a huge outcry. Would there not?
This is a problem with the double standards, because if a man did say that about a woman, that man would probably get sacked. Yeah. And it seems that Lorraine's had a pass here. So Nigel's social media team are calling for her to apologise. She's made she's not hiding that there's no love lost between her and Nigel, but I do think even if you don't like him, you can't just be attacking people's appearance like that. It's just a bit unfair. And I do think...
Don't you think we're sort of, I don't know, exaggerating the importance of all this? I mean, what she said wasn't that bad, was it? I think Nigel's probably had far worse said about him.
We all age and none of us like it, and we pretend not to mind it. Unfortunately, ageing does take the shine off your looks. But I must say, Nigel Farage, I'm not a fan of his, but he's weathered the storm of ageing pretty well. He looks like a sort of sun-tanned, tooth-whitened presenter of some sort of game show, maybe, or seller of books you find in the Gatwick airport. I think he's he's aged quite well.
And I'm just going to say it because I know Lorraine very well, and I've known her for years and years and years and years and years. And I don't think there's an unkind bone in her body. I don't think
she likes to stir it up, though, doesn't she? Like we all do.
But I do think the big question here is that, if people are offensive about women, everyone's quite sensitive, but it's OK for women to mock men and we just take it as a joke. I think that's the undertone here. I think men are always the butt of the jokes, where if a man does that, he needs to be sacked, he's sexist, where women, we have a bit more power now.
Interesting point. OK. Piers, take us to Boris Johnson's column in the Mail today.
Yes.
Because he reckons he still knows how to run the country.
Well, indeed. And Boris Johnson has had many reincarnations, it seems, since he left Number 10, and one of which is as a columnist in the Daily Mail. He says in the Daily Mail that only migrants earning more than £40,000 should be let into Britain. And he's said that Rishi Sunak needs to tackle the record number of arrivals. Of course, the backstory is that one of the claims made by the Brexit campaigners was that we'd take back control and we'd manage to control immigration. But I must say, what isn't being mentioned is that one of the arguments I heard from some of my Brexiteer friends, not that I was one myself, but I respected this argument, it was that, rather than being constrained to take only EU people, we could take anyone we wanted from anywhere in the world. We could take from Africa, Asia, anyone in need. That wasn't often said, but it was an argument used. The other problem with Boris Johnson's argument, I think, is that one of the ways in which immigration has helped this country is in relatively low-paid work, such as care work, NHS. I mean, the NHS is full of people who came from, who were not born in Britain, and, they no doubt are underpaid. So to say that you should be earning the equivalent of £40,000 to get in will mean that we aren't filling the vacancies that we need.
But Boris addresses that point. He says that if you do that, yes, it will hurt certain employers, but those employers have been exploiting people by encouraging them to come here for very low-paid jobs. And that Boris says maybe the whole system needs shaking up.
But how many people, even in Britain, are on a wage of £40,000, let alone migrants who are coming into the country? I think it's a bit far-fetched to put such a number like that. I think most of that...
But when you look at these net migration figures, I mean, they are humongous.
Yes,
Yeah.
745,000?
It's the population of Leeds we took in last year.
Some of them are coming from really desperate situations. Money is the last thing on their mind. They're looking for safety. I know it has gone to a ridiculous number, but we do have to think there has to be a different way to kind of handle this, not...
It's an interesting point, though, don't you think, that Boris is trying to argue, is that if you say... For instance, care homes, privately owned care homes, let me put it like that, are actually exploiting people, immigrants, because they're paying them such a low wage. Therefore, that job becomes very low-valued, undervalued. And that's why Brits won't do those jobs, because they're seen as really low-level, badly paid, and immigrants can do them.
Yes, and this was the case, I think, in the 50s and 60s, when many people emigrated on the Windrush and came over from the West Indies to take jobs that white British people didn't want to take. This is the paradox of exploitation. If the exploiter is giving the exploited person, the allegedly exploited person, a slightly better deal than they would otherwise have, we can say they're doing them a favour. But, of course, this arguably perpetuates a system that doesn't do people a favour in the end. I don't know the answer. It's actually a sort of paradox.
And it's like, who does these jobs? You know, like, as we've seen after Brexit, there is this gap available for these low-skilled jobs, and Brits don't want to do them, so we are having to look to migrants to fill those vacancies.
And they should be better paid.
Well, that's Boris's point, isn't it? The jobs themselves should be rated better, they should be more valued and therefore better paid, and therefore the indigenous population might be actually more interested in doing those jobs. I don't know. I'd throw it open, please, to you.
And working in the care sector, I mean, it should be a vocation. You know, I mean, I remember people who looked after my nan, God love her. You know, you treasure those people. Who helped keep her going and kept her spirits up.
They should be better paid and they should be better valued, shouldn't they? We all know that. So how do you get to that situation?
Well, no one knows.
No,
and where is the money?
OK, Steph, let's talk about Meghan.
Oh, God. Meghan. The royal family saga continues when it comes to Harry and Meghan, but it's not actually coming from the horse's mouth, apparently. We've got Omid Scobie, who's coming out with his book Endgame, and some of the excerpts that's come out is that actually Meghan, in fact, accused two people from the royal family, or maybe people associated with the royal family, of discussing the colour of Archie's skin. It kind of annoyed me when they did do that sit-down interview with Oprah that they didn't name who it is, because since then it's given the media more dogs on acid when it comes to this particular topic.
And Omid Scobie still isn't naming them.
No, he's not. And I just think it's a shame that this is always going to be a topic of discussion, especially where there's rumours that Harry wants to extend that olive branch to his family.
Which is why the timing of this book
horrible.
And just raking it all up again in what is clearly going to make Omid Scobie a lot of money, but will cause so much more damage to the family, potentially.
And I just think every time you think that they are reaching this point where they could actually maybe come together as a family, it just gets scuppered with things like this and books like this, and it's a shame. For me, I just feel like there's no way going back after this.
We don't know whether Omid Scobie, this author, has done it with their sanction, or whether he's just decided, I've got another book in this, and, making money while the sun shines.
Well, the problem is, in his first book, Finding Freedom, Meghan was forced to admit that she actually did brief him on it. So, anything that's coming with this book again, people are going to question how much is Meghan tied to this. Like, there's things said that, for instance, she said she never wants to step foot in Britain again. That's quite a personal opinion and statement. So for Meghan to try distance herself from that will be quite hard, and it's a shame. Her children are half British.
Yeah, and frankly, we made a big fuss of her and we loved her at the time. I still stand by that. Clearly, she and Harry hated some of the headlines they created, I suppose.
King Charles walked her up the aisle.
But yeah,
how much did that wedding cost?
We all absolutely loved her, and I really do feel that even as the media and the press, we really did want to. We wanted to love her.
But as long as we still want to read about her and Prince Harry, there'll be stories like this. These are all reheated stories. There's nothing. I think they've really said all they have to say about their situation. It's hard to see how they can really find anything else And no doubt more books can be written about it, but I think the solution is probably to take a bit less interest.
Well, that's very true.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the most important story of all, which is the Christmas tree. Cambridgeshire's town of March, it's called, isn't it, has a very wonky Christmas tree. And there are reasons for this, Piers, apparently.
Yes.
Apparently it was put up by a tree surgeon. Look at it.
Well,
That could cause some damage, that tree,
It's
if it
been
went
likened
completely...
to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which we're seeing now, but frankly, it's got much more of a lean on it.
the Leaning Tree of March. Yes, I hadn't heard of this tree till I saw page 7 of today's Telegraph, which has a picture of the tree in question, and somebody on social media apparently said it had been plonked down without much care. Another one said it was embarrassing and ridiculous. But I think it's just quirky.
Yeah, I love
It's
it.
not just quirky, but you could have the tree
How can
all
you
year.
love
I love it.
It looks as though it's going to fall down on
No,
somebody.
I like things that are just out of character. Like, you see so
that
many
again.
Christmas trees which are just the same. Get the wonky Christmas tree. Have it, like, people are talking about it now, and I think it just gives it more flair. You can dress it up, make it look nice. I'm all for wonky Christmas trees, as long as they're safe and it doesn't drop
Yes,
on
well,
anybody.
it does look a bit dodgy. Anyway, look, there we have to end it. Piers and Stephanie, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Brilliant. And do come back, won't you, a bit later on in the programme. Do stay with us, because we've got lots more for you, particularly on the hostage situation in the Middle East. You're watching Breakfast on GB News.